You ever watch a lightsaber duel and think, wait, did they choreograph this on their lunch break? Like seriously? We're talking about Ahsoka Tano here. The Jedi who flipped through laser fire, danced through battles with dual sabers, and held her own against Darth freaking Vader. And somehow, in her own show, she moves like she's underwater while wearing ankle weights and trying not to scuff the carpet. It's like someone took the concept of a duel, slowed it down to half speed, muted the music, and said, yep, that's good enough. I mean, what happened to the tension, the stakes, the sweat-dripping, heart-racing rhythm of a Star Wars fight? Instead, we got long pauses, wide swings, and standoffs that feel like two people waiting for the director to yell action, even though the cameras are already rolling. And don't tell me it's about style or mood, because no one was moody in the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight, and that thing was still a volcano of emotion. There's a difference between slow and thoughtful versus slow and sleepy. And right now, Ahsoka's duels feel more like dramatic yoga than actual combat. You could cut out half the movements and still keep up with the story, but here's what really makes it sting. This is the same franchise that gave us throne room chaos, spinning saber staffs and Maul doing backflips like he's trying to get a perfect 10 from the dark side judges. Star Wars used to treat lightsaber fights like opera. Now it feels like we're watching community theater with glow sticks and a fog machine they rented last minute. And yet we all sat there hoping it would get better. Episode after episode, we waited for that moment. The duel that would grab us by the collar and scream, "This is why you love Star Wars." But it never really came. Not with Shin, not with Balom, not even in the big finale. It's like they forgot that lightsabers aren't just weapons, they're the soul of this saga. In this video, we're going to talk about why the fight scenes in Ahsoka felt more like rehearsals than revelations. Why it matters that the action was so flat, and what it says about the current state of Star Wars storytelling. Because if the lightsaber stops being special, if the duel stops delivering meaning, then we're not just losing good choreography, we're losing the very thing that made this galaxy feel alive. Okay, be honest, when you heard Ahsoka was getting her own live-action series, wasn't your first thought something like, oh yeah, this is going to have some of the most badass lightsaber duels we've ever seen? I mean, come on, this is the same Ahsoka Tano who held her own against Maul, tangled with Grievous, and faced Vader without flinching. If anyone deserved choreography on par with the prequels, it was her. But then we saw it. The duels came in slow, stiff, and strangely quiet, like they were being careful not to break the props. And not in a suspense-building, Kurosawa homage kind of way, more like, did they rehearse this on Zoom and shoot it in one take? The anticipation we had, after seeing Ahsoka slice through Inquisitors in animation, just fizzled. You watch the early fights and you think, okay, maybe they're saving the big moves for later. You wait for a standout sequence, a jaw-dropper, something you'll replay in GIF form for years, and yet it never really arrives. Not with Shin, not with Baylan, not even with Morgan Elsbeth, who felt more like a mid-level boss than a final showdown, and that's when the questions start piling up. Why do these duels feel so muted? Why is everything framed like a behind-the-scenes rehearsal? Is it budget, direction, choreography, or maybe just a case of style over substance? You keep looking for the magic, but it never quite sparks the way it's supposed to. So today, we're digging into what happened. Because when the lightsaber fights in a Star Wars show centered around one of the most skilled duelists feel this slow and underwhelming, it's not just a nitpick, it's a red flag. Here's the thing that really drives me nuts. This wasn't just any Star Wars show. It was Ahsoka, the woman who once fought Darth Maul in a throne room filled with collapsing glass and fire, while dual-wielding lightsabers with the intensity of a seasoned Jedi Knight. And yet, in live action, her duels felt like two people testing out foam props in a hotel conference room. You've got Rosario Dawson, who looks great in the role, but is clearly being held back by pacing and direction. The swings are wide, the footwork is clunky, and the pauses between strikes are so long you could fit an entire Clone Wars flashback in there. There's no sense of urgency, no rhythm, just this weird plodding tempo that kills the tension every time. And then there's Balan Skoll, a character with a ton of presence, great design, and a commanding voice, but whose fighting style feels like he's underwater. Every move is deliberate to the point of boredom. He's got the weight of a knight, but none of the ferocity. It's like watching a philosophical debate break out in the middle of a duel. It stings. Because the thing about lightsaber battles is they've always been more than just sword fights. They're character arcs in motion. When Obi-Wan faces Anakin on Mustafar, we're watching the end of a brotherhood. When Luke throws down his saber in front of Vader, it's a rejection of the very violence that built his legend. These aren't just choreographed moves, they're emotional explosions. Ahsoka used to represent that spirit. Her battles in Clone Wars were full of meaning. Every duel was layered with fear, defiance, or loss. You could feel the stakes. So when we saw her again in live action, fans were hoping for something with that same emotional weight. But what we got felt like imitation without soul. There's no heartbreak in these duels, no tension that builds to a climax. They just sort of happen and end. And that hurts more than it annoys, because Ahsoka isn't just another Jedi. She's someone who walked away from the Order, who fought alongside Anakin, who chose independence over tradition. Her lightsaber isn't just a weapon, it's a reflection of everything she's been through. But none of that came through in her fights with Shin or Morgan or even Balon. These should have been moments of catharsis, of internal conflict boiling over into action. But instead, they felt cold, restrained. Like the choreography was afraid to show us who she really is. Because, let's face it, when Star Wars does get it right, it creates moments that define generations. Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, Anakin versus Obi-Wan or Mustafar, even the throne room scene in The Last Jedi, divisive as that movie was, had kinetic weight and a cinematic punch that grabbed you by the collar and didn't let go. The duel between Ahsoka and Vader in Rebels is one of the best fights in the entire franchise, and it was animated, but it had everything. Emotional stakes, character tension, choreography that felt dangerous and personal. Every clash of sabers meant something. Even the silence between strikes was loud. And it's not just the flashy moves, it's the craft, the way the camera follows the action, the timing of each block, the way a fight builds like a conversation, rising and falling until one person wins or breaks. These aren't just fights, they're living symbols of identity, loyalty, and conflict. They're what makes Star Wars feel like Star Wars. That's why we still talk about the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight 20 years later. Not just because it looked cool, but because it meant something. You could see the pain, the betrayal, the love turned to hatred. That's the bar. That's what Ahsoka should have been reaching for. Because when it works, when a lightsaber duel hits that perfect emotional note, it becomes more than a fight, it becomes a legend. But here's the thing, it's not too late. The fact that people care this much about the fights in Ahsoka means the passion is still alive. Fans aren't out here complaining for fun. They're invested. They remember what it used to feel like when the hum of a lightsaber meant something real was about to happen. There's still a chance for future shows to learn from this. To bring in stunt coordinators who understand character-driven action. To trust actors with choreography that pushes them emotionally and physically. The Mandalorian had flashes of this. Obi-Wan Kenobi almost nailed it by the end. There are sparks. We just need the flame. And Ahsoka herself, she's not done. If there's a second season or even another crossover event, there's still an opportunity to show us what she's truly capable of. Give her a fight that reflects her internal conflict, her past with Anakin, her separation from the Jedi, her isolation. Give her a duel that feels earned. Star Wars is filled with redemption arcs, and not just for characters, but for ideas. The lightsaber fight isn't outdated, just been neglected, but the audience still believes in it. We just need the creators to believe in it too. So yeah, hope isn't lost, but it's definitely ready for a comeback. One lightsaber swing at a time. But maybe that's what hurts the most. That the lightsaber, once a symbol of destiny, sacrifice, and transformation, has been reduced to a dull blade in the hands of a franchise that forgot what made it matter in the first place. The tragedy isn't that the fights were slow, it's that they were hollow. We used to see every duel as a conversation, a final statement between ideologies. Jedi versus Sith, hope versus fear, past versus future. Now it's just choreography. Pretty silhouettes against a blue background. Characters swinging out of obligation rather than belief. It's not about nostalgia, it's about legacy. Ahsoka stood at the crossroads of everything that made Star Wars powerful, and the fights should have reflected that weight. Instead, they felt like footnotes. Pretty slow, and ultimately forgettable. And yeah, it's just a show. But it's also a symbol of where Star Wars is going and how it's treating its most sacred language. Action that tells a story. Motion that reveals truth. The duels used to break hearts, spark debates, fuel rewatches for decades. Now they barely echo. So here we are, watching the galaxy grow quieter. Not because there's no more stories to tell, but because the people telling them have stopped swinging like they mean it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please consider looking at my pinned comment and checking out the links for my Amazon storefront. It contains my favorite Legos, my gear in which I make videos, and comics that I read on a daily basis. I update it constantly, so please, take a moment and click on the link. On top of that, check out my second channel, Critical Analysis Hub Plus, and my third channel, Critical Analysis Hub XP. Just one click would go on a long way in supporting my channels and future in YouTube.